Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us on a Friday. Every Friday we're here. And this week we got a special guest with us here, Long Range Reaper down below there. There you go. Right there. He's the SA that's usually in the comments teasing us. So we decided to, put him out there and get him to talk about some hunting tips because, I mean, last time I hunted, I was 14 years old. So, asking me hunting advice is probably not the best thing to do. And then, Lupo over there, nobody really believes him anyway. So we decided to get Mike in here to really talk about it. But so I am Jason Schaller. I am from the Rogue Banshee, and my co-host right there is Robert Lupo. Lupo, why don't you tell them who you are for those who are new?
If you're brand new to this, I am Robert Lupo from Lupo Outdoors. We're kind of everything outdoor channels. We talk about firearms, we talk about competition shooting, shotgun, long range, etc., hunting, fishing, kayaking, sailing, camping, and survivalist. So we try to cover all that stuff. We do a lot of box openings and a lot of product reviews as well. I've been posting a lot of shorts up on my channel in the afternoons, usually about 3 o'clock, regarding right now. I'm putting a bunch of stuff up there on white-tailed deer hunting. And I happen to know for a fact that my buddy Mike there has recently bagged a buck. And I asked him if he'd be interested in coming in and talking about hunting, for whether you're a beginner, whether you're an advanced hunter. Mike is absolutely brilliant out there. He does his own butchering and everything. Fantastic guy. We talk to him often, and he's going to be joining us this year at SHOT, which is going to be fantastic. We're going to have a great time. So, Mike, let's talk about like deer hunting. You want to just go ahead and take it away, and we'll pop in with questions or comments sporadically.
Okay. Well, so I'm a prime example of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you put enough comments down there, you might get your face up on this podcast. So Jason made me go to makeup before this. I don't know why, but so anywho, we talked a lot about hunting, from beginner to advanced. And everybody considers themselves somewhere in between, and not all of us put ourselves in the right category. I do not believe that the size of the animal you get determines whether you're a beginner or an advanced hunter. I think the amount of meat you put in your freezer does. So my biggest thing is you can't eat antlers. And if you're out there to trophy hunt, there's ways to kill bigger bucks or put yourself in a position to kill bigger bucks. But I scout all the same. So if I get in an area where I'm seeing bucks everywhere, I'm obviously going to take a bigger buck. But if I get out there and, see 60 does to every buck, which is what Oregon's been lately, my goal when I'm hunting is put meat in the freezer. So everybody's been to the grocery store and has seen the prices of everything go up. But I think hunting for me comes down to just anything else. Like we've got 2 competition shooters here who will tell you that your preparation is more important than your time on the line, because your preparation is going to lead to success on the line. And I think the hunting goes for the same thing. So for me, this year is when my preparation starts for next year. The minute in Oregon, I can't have my trail cams out in my area during hunting season. They frown on it. So what I do is the minute hunting season's over, I go put my cameras back out. And I start to identify where the deer are coming back to, because they've just got a bunch of pressure from all these people walking around in the woods, driving on the roads. So I do 2 types of scouting. I do my off-season scouting when the deer are calm, because right now they're not going to have as much pressure. They're going back to, have their babies and breed and all that stuff. So I want to know where they're comfortable. And then later on in the season, I'm actually going to go out there with a 4-wheeler, walk around and kind of walk through those areas. And I'm going to put cameras up other places. I'm going to find out where do they go when they're not comfortable. Because come hunting season, the minute gunshots start going off, they're going to go somewhere. And that's not somewhere they've never been before. It's going to be some predetermined place where they're comfortable, and it's usually higher. So deer rarely run low. So a lot of these people who hunt high have good success, but not as early in the year because the pressure usually pushes them up. Snow is what pushes them down when their feed isn't accessible.
Now,
so I would
real quick, Mike. We had a question come through from G23. I'm surprised he asked this question. Now, first of all, I know that G23 is from Oregon. He asked, would you hunt with a 327 Federal? You see, I would expect him to ask if you could hunt with a 40, because G23 is a 40. Yeah. But would you hunt with a 327 Federal?
Absolutely. I think 30 caliber is kind of the staple of America. I mean, all these people are saying you need a 338, you need these big bore, big whoppers. I think 30 caliber is kind of the staple. I think your grandpa, my grandpa, and grandpas long before have killed a lot of animals with a 30-30 that are a lot bigger than what we shoot at on a daily basis. So it comes down to shot placement, bro.
There's a reason why the 308 is called the deer round.
Well, the 308 is called a deer round because the military adopted it as a 7.62 by 5.1 NATO, and made everyone think it was a sniper rifle. And we'll talk about that later.
That's a whole podcast right there.
Yep. Hey, bro, G23. It comes down to shot placement, man. If you can put that 327 Federal in a 2-minute circle at 100 yards, I'd say you can kill pretty much anything you want with it for the most part. Without looking at the ballistics off the top of my head, I know you're right in there with what I'm hunting with deer wise, as far as energy and muzzle energy and energy on target. So absolutely. Plus I've heard the 327 Federal runs really well suppressed. So
there you go. So, well, anyways, didn't mean to interrupt you. Just kind of, we had that question jump in there. Cause I know he is he asked, what part of Oregon are you in? I know
what part of Oregon am I in?
Yeah.
I'm in and around Staten. Plus technically I'm in Staten, but Staten's huge. So I'm within 15 miles of Staten proper.
There you go.
Where are you at, G23?
Yeah, 23. Go ahead and throw that out there. I'll bring that up. But didn't mean to interrupt you. We just had that question come in, and I thought it'd be kind of cool because I'm sure we're going to be talking about ammo later because, well, you gave me a bunch of screenshots that we're going to be showing. But anyways, I hear that a lot from the hunters here in Montana. They love it when it snows because it pushes the elk down off the top of the mountains. And the hunters here just love bad weather.
Yes. I think, like I said, preparation is going to determine your success unless you're lucky. Any hunter who listens to this podcast is going to know, or you're one of them, who gets in their truck and drives roads all day. And if something runs out in front of them, they shoot it. If not, they say there's no deer in the area and it's time to move on to a different unit. So if you're willing to go out and bushwhack, do your time, find where they're at, find their patterns, natural water is huge. I know in Montana, especially up where you are, we have a lot of seasonal creeks. So come hunting season, those creeks might be dry. So you need to go find where the water's at, because deer wake up in the morning and they go for water, and then they go for feed, then they bed, and then they go for feed a little bit more. They go for water, they go to bed. So you need to find where those areas are so you can intercept them, because deer are creatures of habit. That's why they have game trails, because they walk the same path and they use the same areas. So especially for elk hunters, those elk will turn a little spring into a wallow and they'll roll around. Especially when it's hot out, man. Early season, August, if you guys have those archery tags, find a wallow, man. You might find a bear too, but find in the water, find in the feed.
So are you trying to say that would be a grizzly error?
Could be, for punny people.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
he would
tell a pun would pick a pocket. Yep. So you were talking about, the deer walking around. There's like I said, I've been putting shorts up for deer hunting. And one of the trivia questions I have for people is, you can tell the sex of a white-tailed deer by its footprints. because the female deer walk with a purpose. It's very distinct, where the bucks have a tendency to sway, and you will see them kind of dragging their feet a little bit. And if it's a really big drag, it could be like an older buck or a really big buck. But if you look at the footprints, if they're even and specific, chances are you're stalking a doe. And if you see drag, good chance it's a buck.
Yeah, and that goes for, I think, pretty much every species of deer. Usually with bucks, you're going to see a bigger spread in the toes, in the hooves. So doe will have that more pointed tip, where the hooves meet, and a buck's going to have more of a squared out or oscillated look to it. And it goes that way for elk as well. But did you just assume the deer's gender, Robert?
Goddamn right I did.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Okay. Demonetized.
Hey, I want to say hi to Big Country. Big Country was actually Big Country commented on one of my shorts, and we had a little dialogue, and I sent him a link to the podcast. So, hey, Big Country, thanks so much for actually joining us on the podcast. And I appreciate your comments on my videos very much. Thank you.
So what Big Country is saying here, the deer will take the easiest routes. That's, for the most part, that's very true. We creatures want to reduce the amount of calories we burn, whether we're lazy or whether we're an animal trying to preserve calories going into winter. You're not going to see a buck out there frolicking around, jumping and bucking, playing. You see Bambi doing that until he grows up. So the path of least resistance is very true. Is a deer going to, swim across a lake or walk around it? He's going to walk around it. But I've shot some of the biggest deer I've ever shot during season up in the thick stuff, and they call them educated deer. I don't know if they're just, they feel more comfortable up there or whatnot, but they get bigger because the people don't go in there. So you will see some of the biggest deer you've ever seen in the thick stuff, not out because when you drive, you're always looking at the fields and you're like, man, it just looks like there should be deer there. Well, that's because in every movie, every hunting show, where the food plot is, that's where the deer are. But I don't know where you're from, Big Country, but I'm out here in Muley Country in Oregon. And I tell you what, man, there's deer in every field all the time. If it's private property and if it's public land, you got to go freaking find them. So,
well,
yeah.
And that's the funny thing is deer are not stupid. I mean, they're not dumb. You could, I remember as a kid, we'd go out scouting and it's like, you can see them. They're there. You're like, cool. The second, they know when opening day is because they're gone. They're just,
that internal calendar. But you've also got, what a lot of people think is, the deer know when the season are. Well, the funny thing is about a day or two before hunting season, sometimes a week before, thousands of people are hitting the woods in their RVs, their campers, their tents. So is it the deer know when the season are, or is it when all of us yahoos go and park our RV at the water hole that everyone else wants to hunt because there's water there? So anywho, what was that comment there?
Vanessa King was just talking about your education is important for survival.
Yeah, that's why Robert needs a lot of friends.
Yeah. Well,
no. That's why come this way.
That's why he makes sure that all of our checks, the checks he sends to us, cash.
Hey, look, I'm really a nice guy. If I had friends, you could ask them.
If you had friends, yeah. What are you talking about? Your actual friends or your paid friends?
Wait, there's a difference?
I keep getting these IOUs, so I don't know who's getting paid, but it ain't me.
Oh, you haven't been getting paid, huh?
Ever.
So anyway, we talked a little bit about calories, calibers earlier with that 357. So not 350,
327.
327. God, I got 357 in the brain for revolver. But what's appropriate for a caliber and what's not appropriate for a caliber? Because you always hear these people like, "Oh, I could go take a deer with a 223." I'm like, You could, but is that really the brightest idea in the world to do?
Well, like a 327 is way low. I mean, it's small. It's still a 30 caliber, but it's small. If you live in a state where they require you to shoot what we call stovepipe cartridges or straight wall cartridges,
Well,
you can do it. I'd prefer like a 350 Legend, a 450 Marlin, 4570, something like that. But for a small deer, for whitetail, you could use a 327. It all comes down to shot placement. I think that goes for any caliber. If you're shooting a 338 Lapua and you miss, you're not going to kill a deer. Whereas if you're shooting a 223 and you hit it in the 10 ring, you're going to eat deer that year. So it comes down to what you can pack. I don't know what we can talk about, right? I can't touch one, right? But I can talk about one.
Yeah, you can talk about it, you can't touch it.
Okay,
if it's behind you on the wall, you can go that.
So this right here is a 27-pound 375 enabler. And it shoots very well, but you're not going to want to carry it through the woods.
Nope.
So,
well, like you like to say, ounces or pounds.
Ounces or pounds. And talk to anybody who hunts in Alaska like I do. When you go to caribou hunt and the pilot says, this is your allotted weight, and you have to bring a week's worth of stuff, and then, you know, you don't bring a four-wheeler, you don't bring a side-by-side. So whatever you go out there and shoot, you got to pack back to camp, and that has to get on the plane on the way back. So ounces definitely
include your meat.
Correct.
Yeah, you got to.
I'd leave Robert and bring my deer back and tell Robert just hitch a ride on the next flight. But
yeah, right. Yeah, actually, both Mike and I both lived up in Alaska. I was in Juneau, Anchorage, and Hoona, and you were in Juneau also, weren't you?
Yep, Juneau, Petersburg, Ketchikan, and then a little bit in Fairbanks.
Yeah, the Alaska hunting is a whole different story. You know, I mean, it's a lot of the guys in Alaska, like to say people in the lower 48 have it easy compared, because it's not just like, oh, I'm just going to go in the woods and shoot something and off I go. But like he said, you know, you go out on there's a lot of charters on seaplanes. They'll take you out to like an island area or up in the northern parts of Alaska, and they'll drop you off and they'll pick you up within, you know, your allotted time. Good luck. You either find something or you don't.
Well, and this will go for Jason as well. You need to bring a round that's going to compete with what's in the area. So when I lived in Alaska, you know, I couldn't bring, I wasn't a big fan of the 30-30. In fact, my first gun that my grandpa bought me was a 45-70, and I was 12. And it was very unforgiving on my frame. But the thing is, you're out there hunting an 80-pound Sitka blacktail, but there's also a 1,500-pound coastal brown bear running around. So you're out there hunting deer, but in his country. So you've got to go prepared to deal with him, even though you're only hunting. I know a lot of people in Alaska that shoot the deer with their pistols. They'll bring a revolver out, you know, 357, 44 mag, 454, 500, 460, whatever it is, and they shoot their deer with that, and their rifle's bear protection. So
you're not necessarily hunting for what you're hunting for. You're not, the caliber you're carrying may not be for the animal you're hunting for, but for the animal that's hunting you.
Correct. And bears up in Alaska, and I think it's been proven in Montana and Wyoming as well at these points, bears have learned that there's meat on both sides of that gunshot. Yes. So where the shot came from and where the shot went, there's meat there.
Yeah.
So
and sometimes they converge because, well,
correct. If they're small bears and they haven't duked out, you know, if you've got one bear, he'll have a 10 square mile, 20 square mile area. But if you've got a bunch of small bears, we call them bachelor bears, where there's 6 or 7 of them in one group and they haven't figured out the pecking order yet. To me, that's more dangerous than having a big 1,000-pounder sitting somewhere, because, you know, I'd rather run into one bear or know where that bear is through my scouting, because bears are also creatures of habit. They walk their same trails every day. I'd rather know where he is than go, there's bear sign everywhere in my hunting area.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's definitely a thing. Out here, we've got black bears, and I killed the biggest black bear I've ever seen in Oregon last year with an AR, hunting cougars. So you never know what's in the woods with you. Everybody goes, oh, everything up here is dinky. It's small. They don't eat fish where we are. And then I run into a 530-pound pig on accident. So
I ran into hunting with my dad in Montana. We were out there with 20 gauge shotguns hunting grouse, and big ass black bear.
Lupo's lagging out.
Yeah, he's
going down. He's going.
Within about, I would say, maybe 30, 40 feet of us, gets upright, kind of looks at us with us. Yeah, that got our attention.
You max headroomed a little bit there, Lupo.
Did I?
But yeah, I mean that's so funny because where I think of when I learned to hunt back in Pennsylvania, we really didn't. We're out there with 30-06s, 30-30s. We're solid in the 30 caliber there. I mean, the bears were a lot smaller, right? I mean, we weren't very worried. We knew they were there. We didn't really worry about them because they mostly wanted to avoid us. But yeah, you get out here in the West. Like when I moved to Montana, I started hearing, people are shooting elk at 700 yards. I'm just like, you guys are absolutely nuts because, in Pennsylvania, 100 yards a long shot for us because at 101 was a house, or you're shooting through trees.
Right.
And and then you start realizing the bears are bigger here. Then you add in, wolf reintroduction. It can get kind of nasty out there. I mean,
absolutely. And that comes to another thing. If you're a hunter and you're out there slinging lead further than you're comfortable on steel, and I'm talking, I have a minute of angle rule. I don't shoot at anything that I can't put rounds at minute distance. So I don't really hunt outside of 800 to 1,000 yards on elk. And on deer, I bring that in quite a bit because, we need to be ethical hunters, and your job is to go out there and put the animal down, and you don't want him running out wounded. That's unethical in my opinion. So these guys that go, oh, he's out there, looks like it's about 500 yards, but I've never seen anything further than 300 in a rangefinder. So I'm just going to aim above him a little bit and touch her off. That to me, that's not hunting, that's shooting. And, it gives us all a bad name when you see these deers running around with arrows sticking out of their faces and stuff like that.
Horrible. Yeah. So tell us some more about your process and the ammo you did. What did you bag that last deer with that you got not too long ago?
That was 2 weeks ago. It was a 6.5 Creed, 147 grain ELDM, one shot where the jawline meets the neck, and game over.
So you used a match bullet.
I did use a match bullet, but
that's fabulous.
I've fired that match bullet into ballistics gel. I've shot it into water, and I've shot it into phone books, heavy stuff. And the ELDX and the ELDM are so much alike. And everybody says, well, the ELDX is a hunting bullet, the ELDM is a match bullet. They are so much alike in the way that they perform on gel that, what did I say earlier? Shot placement matters, right?
Exactly.
So you don't want something that's just going to shed a jacket, like, an open tip hollow point, that's just going to peel a jacket back and send copper everywhere. But you want to be able to shoot something that you can hit where you're aiming, because you will get vitals if, you're shooting something that you're comfortable with.
Exactly. So what rounds, we had talked about ballistics at one point. Do you want to talk ballistics, or do you want to cover more stuff before we go into that?
Yeah, let's talk ballistics. What's your question?
Well, no, you had sent us a bunch of things talking about the different ballistics for hunting, and I was absolutely fascinated by it.
So a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and I am just another person with an opinion, but I'm not going to show up at an argument without data. So I'm not going to argue an opinion unless it comes to politics, and then I'm not going to argue with you at all. So if somebody could pull up on the screen the 308.
Yeah, 308 is 65. 308. There we go. Share the screen. Let's go right there.
All right. So on a 308.
I know it's tight. It's tough to read.
Yeah. So Jason, at 300 yards, what kind of muzzle energy are we getting?
300 yards, you are getting 1861.6 foot-pounds.
Okay. And what kind of drop?
Your drop, let's see here. That's your vertical correction, horizontal correction.
Vertical.
Is that what you're looking for? The horizontal correction?
Vertical correction.
Vertical correction. 0.9.
0.9. So what was the energy in foot-pounds?
1861.
Okay. So now go to the 30-06.
Okay. Let's go to...
All of these are 147 to 150 grain factory loads that I pulled off the internet and ran through Strelock.
Okay, so there's 30-06.
It's a little less, isn't it?
Yeah, because you're looking at 300 yards, you're at 1310, and your vertical is 1.2.
Correct. So we now have a 308 that's ballistically superior to a Magnum, right?
Mm-hmm.
So don't let caliber and size of round fool you. Now look at that 30-06 since you have the 30-06 open, right?
Yep.
All right. At 1,700, well, let's just go to 1,000. At 1,000 yards, what's your vertical correction in MRAD?
16.7.
Okay, I have the 6.5 Creed pulled up. This is with 147 grain ELD. It's factory everything, factory BC, factory velocity. At 1,000 yards, I'm at 8.3 MRAD, and you're at what?
16.7. So I'm
half.
Yeah.
Now with a 10-mile-an-hour wind, what are you? So horizontal correction.
You are at 6.07.
I'm at 1.63. So what about energy in foot-pounds?
So at 1,000 yards, our energy is at 138.1.
I'm at 842.
So I mean, you've lost so much energy out at 1,000 yards.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a ballistic coefficient. So the amount of drag that round creates is going to slow it down rapidly. So yes, you're putting out the same size bullet. It's going out actually probably a little faster, if not close. And because of the drag coefficient, which is the ballistic coefficient, it's slowing down, which means it's blowing around further in the wind. And I am actually with a Creedmoor, and people are going to come out and say 6.5 need more and all this other stuff. I'm not a Creedmoor fan. I'm a ballistics junkie. I like to get out there and I like to be as efficient as I can. And when you're hunting and when you're shooting long range in general, the wind is your enemy. You can plug anything into a program. It's going to tell you exactly what your drop's going to be based on gravity, ballistic coefficient, sectional density, all that stuff. And so when it comes down to it, is a 30-06, should it be, when you look at it compared to a 6.5 Creedmoor, should it be superior? Yes, but people don't look into the math. They just say, well, it's bigger, it's better. My grandpa used a 30-06 and so did mine. I used a 30-06 when I was a kid for a while. But learn the ballistics of your weapon, know your weapon so you know what it's capable of. And there's nothing wrong. So go ahead and pull up the 6.5 Creed.
We got
or pull up the 270, whichever one you got.
270?
Yeah,
I got 270 here right now. So let's bring that up. Crap. Add stage. Come on. Jason can use a mouse today.
No, you can't.
No. I'm just let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit. How's that?
All right. So on a 270, shooting 150 grain Winchester Super X, which is the round. I was trying to find a 150 grainer, and I've got the 6.5 Creedmoor pulled up. Again, 147 grain ELD factory match grade ammo. At 400 yards, I would say 300 is probably the most the average shooter is going to shoot on an animal and be consistently good if you're not a long range junkie. But let's go to 400 yards. 400 yards, the 6.5 Creed, I'm at 1,604 foot-pounds. What's the 270 at?
Base
1209.8.
Yeah.
1209?
Yeah, 1209.8.
Okay, my vertical correction is 1.9 mils.
2.1.
All right, and my horizontal for wind is only 0.72. That's with a 10-mile-an-hour horizontal wind.
1.16.
Okay, so now we'll go down. Let's go to 1,000. I'm at 842 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, or foot-pounds of energy on target.
272.
842.2.
Wow.
Yeah, this is 272.9.
Okay, and then my feet per second is still 1606 at 1,000. What are you at?
There's no feet per second on this one.
Oh, I must not. That was the one I didn't put it on there. So
Yeah.
it just goes to show, and I will pull up, since we like to show receipts. I'm going to pull up my Strelock app here. So for the 270, 150 grain Super X, I went with a ballistic coefficient of 0.344, bullet speeds 2850, and bullet weight of 150 grains. So that's factory. So somebody will come in and say, oh, I can hand load way hotter than that. If I gave you my 6.5 Creedmoor hand load, you'd probably say I was unsafe. So you can do that with any cartridge. So we're just going to compare factory to factory because we can get into a measuring contest with our hand loads all we want. But so the 6.5 Creedmoor, 6.5 Creedmoor, I used 147 grain bullet, ballistic coefficient of 0.697, which is significantly higher. It's over double. Bullet speed of 2695, and this is just what I'm taking off the factory ammo box. So if anybody wants to plug that data in and tell me I'm wrong, then talk to Strelock. But so just know what your rifle's capable of. So a lot of people come out and they'll say, I only have 15 inches of drop at that range, but look at your muzzle velocity and your energy. If certain rounds need a certain amount of velocity to expand. So that's why Hornady is also good, is Hornady's built these bullets to expand at lower velocities, which brings your effective range further out, because if the round goes into animal but it doesn't expand, you're not going to get that what do we call that, parabolic shockwave, where have you ever seen like that really dark purple spot around the meat where you shoot it, where it liquefies the meat? Well, that round that's expanding like that is sending all that pressure through. You're getting little hole in the front, big hole in the back. Well, the issue we were having in the Middle East was we're shooting full metal jackets, shooting real fast. You had little hole in the front, little hole in the back. We weren't getting that positive expansion of the rounds. So if you're shooting Grandpa's 30-06, don't shoot the black tip stuff. So there's just you need to know your rifle and know what it's capable of, and know what the round that you're shooting is capable of as well. And you can hunt with pretty much anything that you can shoot straight with, as long as it has enough energy to bring the animal down. So I really wanted to throw this out there to show, a 270 is much bigger than a 6.5 Creedmoor. It's darn near a 30-06 neck down to 27 caliber. It's a little shorter, but not much. And the 6.5 Creedmoor is really on a 308 platform, neck down to 264. So it should be more powerful than the Creed, but because of the way that they bumped the shoulder back and it made space in the case to allow the long high BC bullets, those bullets fly through the air with little resistance. So they're not as affected by atmospherics downrange, and that's what makes it superior. It's not the fact that some guy went out and won a 1,000-yard competition and everyone's like, oh, I bought a 6.5 Creedmoor, so I'm a sniper now. The round is just capable of much more, and it will be a good round to teach somebody on. It's a good round to learn on. It's a good round to practice on because you're not blowing around in the wind so much and you're going to be on target more often. So your misses are smaller. So,
it's funny when you're reading that out, your foot energy, your energy in foot pounds at 1,000 yards, you were like what, around 800, somewhere around there
with the Creedmoor.
Yeah.
842.2.
All right. So I'm looking at the 270. So that would be somewhere around, estimating about 550 yards. So you're at it would be at foot pounds. So you're looking at the 6.5 Creedmoor as delivering twice the amount of power.
Well, look at the muzzle, or look at the energy at the muzzle, or at 100 yards.
Yeah.
So you show that bigger powder capacity at 100 yards, right?
Yep.
So, but look at 200.
Yeah.
So at 200, I'm at 1957. You're at 1836.
36. So it's losing fast.
It's because of the drag. So if you and I both weigh the same amount of weight, if we both weigh the same amount, and I'm running slower than you, but you have a 20-mile-an-hour headwind.
Yeah.
I'm going to run faster, further, and drag is what's pulling you back. We don't weigh anymore. Gravity's not affecting us either way. It's just the amount of drag. Or if we both weigh the same amount, but you're shaped like a chunk of plywood and I'm shaped like a chunk of plywood this way, which one of us is going to be more efficient going through the air?
Yeah.
So that's my ballistics. How many people have killed deer with 22 long rifle? What do they say? Grandpa used to say, shoot them at the base of the ear. It's about shot placement.
That's very true.
You shoot them at the base of the ear at, point blank.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the Italian mafia, that's how you hunt deer, right?
Right.
With a 22 revolver.
It's a message from Jimmy,
Right. Right.
You ate his rhododendron.
But we just showed, we'll get rid of the 270 because the 270 is a toad. But when we go to the 30-06, I think that's really where it shows the superiority of, and I'm not even going to say just the Creedmoor. I'm going to say these new cartridges that everybody's saying, you don't need it. My 30-06 is, or my 6.5 Swedish Mauser's been doing what the Creedmoor's been doing for 200 years. When it comes down to it, a 30-06 at the muzzle has comparable energy, or at 100 yards has comparable energy to a 6.5 Creedmoor, because of that drag. And then when you start going down the range, at 1,700 yards, just short of a mile, I'm still at 354 foot-pounds of energy, and the 30-06 is at 13.9. It is literally tumbling and falling out of the air.
See, this is why I like being a pistol guy. We don't worry about shit like this.
Facts. However,
can I ring steel at 25 feet? I'm good.
Exactly. And you load that thing to where it'll barely cycle just to keep your recoil low, because all you need to do is touch it.
That's right. I just got to get a sound out of that steel. That's all I care about. Yep.
I mean, when I'm running my big staccatos and stuff, I'm loaded way down there. I mean, I think the slide's barely coming back far enough to kick that thing out.
Yeah.
But I can really rock it. So
yeah,
I think when it comes down to hunting, you want to ethically be able to kill the animal. And that first starts with your preparation, getting to see one within a distance you're willing to shoot or that you're comfortable shooting. But then you need to be shooting something that's going to actually bring it down. And, the reason I like the 264 cartridges, the 6.5 Creedmoor, the 6.5 PRC, I really like them because they don't blow around in the wind very much. With that high BC low drag, hunting season is usually fall, and fall's when we have the most of our wind. So what do animals do? They like to, come around and wind us. So when we see the animal, if we try to call it, like let's say you're trying to bugle for bulls, the bull is going to swing around on you and try to wind you. So your best chance of killing him is when you see him, or hopefully when he's coming up with the wind in his face, and hopefully he doesn't smell you. So I've always had the best chance of shooting elk when I see them before I start calling, because bulls are smart, elk are smart, deer are smart. If they are going to go find something that they're curious about, they will walk all the way around you so that the wind is in their face and you are in front of them, so they can smell what's in front of them. When they travel, I have noticed they like to travel with the wind at their back, because deer have very poor sight, but they will see what's in front of them and smell what's behind them, so they don't get snuck up on. That's just my personal opinion. I noticed that a lot of the times in the mornings and in the evenings, they'll go to and from water with the wind at their rear, or from blowing at their rear. And I don't know if that's why, but it makes sense that they'd want to smell what's behind them, because they can see what's in front of them.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Something I totally have never thought about. I mean, we all know about scent. And until you said that, it just never made it. It's not that it never made sense. It's just I never thought about it that way. Right? I mean, yeah. If you have a blind spot, if you have a really good scent and really poor vision, you're going to be where you're going to want the wind coming from your blind spot.
Well, do predators come attack deer from the front?
No.
No, the cougar, the bear, they're ambush predators, right?
Yeah. Wolves.
Yeah. So it's just my personal opinion. That's what I think. I think that's why they do it, and it makes sense to me. One thing that I do want to talk about elk hunting, if you're hunting with somebody during calling season, like during the rut, you're going to know about where the elk are. If you get out of your car and the elk are between 4 and 20 miles this way, you are going to want to have the hunter ahead of the caller. So, because what do animals do? Anybody, you guys ever coyote hunt?
No.
So when you hunt something with a call and they hear it way off in the distance, they're booking it. They're gone, shot out of a cannon. And then when they get closer, they slow down. They're like, okay, I need to be more aware of my surroundings because I don't exactly know what this is. And when it's a bull and you're bugling, if you're cow bleating, they're going to come in, hot and heavy. But then when you bugle, they know that there's another threat. There's another bull out there. So the closer they get, they slow down. They start taking in the situation. And sometimes they won't get close enough because they're like, okay, now I hear the sound doesn't sound right because you're using a Primos like everybody else. So always have the hunter a couple 100 yards, I'd say like 200 yards between the caller and where you think the elk are coming from. Because by the time the elk hits the hunter, they're still moving at a fair enough clip that he can bleed at him real quick or, squeal at him real quick, get him to stop, but they're still actually moving towards the sound of the call. And that's where I've had my best luck.
That makes total sense because it sounds weird to think about that, but if you're talking about they are coming in faster than get cautious closer to the call. Mm-hmm. You want that hunter right where they're like getting ready to slow down.
Exactly.
Because I mean, if you think
about it, they're still focused on that call enough to
they're still focused on that call. They're not paying attention to their surrounding, but they're still focused on that call. Yeah, mm-hmm. That's essentially where they're the most vulnerable at that point because they're focused.
So when we were talking about calibers, Big Country stated something. It says, to me, it all depends on where and what you're hunting as to what caliber is best for your area.
I think we kind of went over that when we were talking about like Montana, Wyoming, Alaska. I would not hunt with a 6.5 Creedmoor in Alaska. Even if I was hunting Sitka blacktail that are 80, 90 pounds on the hoof, I would hunt with most likely either my 375 Raptor or my 338 Lapua, or potentially a 4570 if I'm in the bushes. But
what about a 300 Win Mag?
You can kill anything in North America with a 300 Win Mag. I've gotten away from the Win Mag just because they've put out so much in the last 10 years that is ballistically superior to it. Robert, I like to go out and shoot aways. So
yes, I'm
always looking for an upgrade. And people that get set in their ways, you can get set in your ways. And to a point, I was there with the 300 Win Mag. I used a 300 Win Mag for years on a Surgeon Action. And then here comes the 300 PRC, here comes the Lapua, here comes all this stuff. And I'm out there and I'm like, wait, 300 Win Mags aren't winning competitions anymore. So if the people that do it for a living aren't using it anymore, why am I?
Yeah, exactly.
But it is sufficient.
Talk to us a little bit about the 6.5 PRC. When would you use that? And when would you not?
The 6.5 PRC is a 6.5 Creedmoor on steroids. It is
it's a Magnum version, right?
Yes, it is a formidable. I think they messed it up a little bit, in my opinion, because they made it just a hair too big to throw on the AR-10 platform, and the Creedmoor was built for the AR-10 platform. But the 6.5 PRC will outperform a 6.5 by 284, which is a long action. To me, it's really hard to beat recoil-wise. And Robert, you know, I mean, we took you out to 1,800 plus yards. Or sorry, 1,218 yards, I believe it was.
1,218
about to say, man, that fish is going from about this big to this big.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
The eye of the beast was this big, you know.
Yeah, he was shooting a 6-inch group.
Oh, man.
What's interesting about the 6.5 PRC to me is I expected it to kick a lot more than it did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm fortunate because I've been shooting shotguns like for such a long period of time. I'm not recoil sensitive.
Yeah,
so
your shoulders
I'll shoot anything. You know, some people, they're like, they flinch with the recoil or it's a natural reaction to them. And I've never had that problem, but I was expecting a lot. So the first time I shot that rifle in 6.5 PRC, I was so focused on everything you were telling me what to do and how to read the wind. I wasn't even thinking about recoil because I really wasn't even feeling the recoil. And that's a big ass round. And the recoil is nothing. Although now, to be fair, the recoil on your 50 BMG didn't phase me either. The dust cloud that went over me did. You know.
Yeah, felt recoil on the 50 is not bad, but that energy wave that goes over you, I call it a minor emergency every time the trigger gets pulled.
You don't feel, it's not the recoil. It's, I don't know how to explain it. It's like you feel it's like this thing will wash over you. I liked it. It was awesome.
It's the pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, but so what would you hunt with a 6.5 PRC?
I'd go up to elk. My rule is a lot of elk have been killed with 30-30s. A lot of elk have been killed with 308s. I meet hunters in the woods all the time carrying 243s, 7mm08s. If you're going to hunt it with a short action cartridge, the 6.5 PRC is pretty much going to outperform every short action cartridge out there. So if you were planning on hunting it with a 308, if you're planning on hunting with a 7mm08, a 243, take it out and shoot it with a 6.5 PRC. I'd go up to elk, and that's about as far as I'd go. I'd shoot black bear with it. When I'm hunting big predators like bears, I like to bring the energy to the table because there's a chance you're going to shoot it under austere conditions like I did with my bear, where it decides it's going to eat you. And shot placement is important, but that if you miss by a couple inches of the harder lungs, you need the energy going into that animal that's going to slow it down or potentially break something. So I'm a big fan of, the big magnums for bears, whether it be a black bear or a brown bear, because, that's one of the few things in the woods that can also hunt you. So if you're going on the offensive for something, if you're hunting some sort of, deer or any sort of, hooved animal, I know people in Alaska that have hunted moose with a 308 their entire lives. I would take a 6.5 PRC moose hunting, except for the fact that moose live in brown bear country. So kind of like Big Country was saying, your area. Is a 6.5 PRC going to bring down a moose? If you shoot it in the heart and lungs, it will. If you take it through the shoulders, it won't. So what do you shoot well, and how far out can you shoot it well? So for a moose, I'm a Lapua guy, 338 Lapua or 4570, because I'm in brown bear country. Now, if there were moose in Oregon, or if there were moose in Florida, which I think you guys have alligators and pythons that have killed everything except for you guys, and they're working on that.
Yeah.
You know, you could potentially take out a 6.5 PRC. I know there's a lot of Eskimos out there, and a lot of like Inupiats, Aleutian people that have killed the Tlingit and Haida. They use 30-30s on moose. So if a 30-30 can kill it, a 6.5 PRC darn well can.
Absolutely. So we have about 10 minutes left. You want to give us some of your tips and tricks for deer hunting and some like beginning and advanced ideas?
It all goes into the preparation, but I think if you since we already talked about preparation, be the first guy out in the woods. Don't be the last guy out in the woods. I'm in the woods at about 3:30 in the morning where I'm going to hunt. So if I'm an hour from where the car turns off, I'm out there at 2:30, but I am at my first stand, wherever I'm going to be, whichever canyon I'm in, whichever area I'm hunting, at 3:30 in the morning, because I want to take in what's going on around me. If I blow something out while I'm walking in, and usually I know where the deer are bedded out, I don't walk through the thick stuff on my way to my hunting area. I walk through the wide open stuff because I know the deer aren't there. And I don't want to blow them out of their beds because I want them to wake up comfortable, stretch, have their coffee, and head for water because I'm between there and the water. So be the earliest guy out in the woods. And for another reason that's important is if you hear people around you, you need to move for two reasons. People like to shoot at stuff that moves in the woods during hunting season. And if you can hear people, the deer can hear people. So I use unscented deodorant. I do not do the whole, wash my clothes with the Primos's laundry detergent and all that crap. I've killed a lot of deer in Carhartt pants. I don't wear camo as much anymore. I used to, but if I'm going to hunt in an area with a lot of people, like a general season tag where there's going to be hundreds of people in the woods, I usually wear something where I can be seen easily because I want somebody to look at me and say, that's a person, not that could be a deer. So I'm going to send around at it. I've had deer walk within 30 feet of me, look my direction when I'm wearing Carhartt pants and a, tan jacket and go, okay, and keep walking. So camo is probably one of the biggest sales pitches in the market. And every time they put out a new camo, everyone's got to get it. Yeah. It's like trucks. It's like cars. Camo is important for me when I'm trying to conceal myself from something that's trying to find me, not something that necessarily is trying to see me or smell me. If I'm going to go out and hunt Robert, I'm going to wear camo. But if I'm going to go out and hunt a deer, I'm probably going to wear something where a human being can identify. It's kind of like where most states make you wear orange. Well, what's the freaking point of going and buying Nomad cryptic camo when they're going to make you wear an orange hat? Yeah. Might as well be wearing your Carhartts. They're comfortable, right? So
I like the camouflage hunter's orange, where it's the different shades of and broken up. And I thought that was like, why? Well, I mean, keep in mind, deer see black and white anyhow. So,
I have heard that elk can see blue. I don't know this to be true. When I go out in the woods, I wear something that's about that color. If I'm out in the fall, I wear brown. If I'm out, I've got some green Wrangler stuff that I'll wear in the green times of the year up here in Oregon. And I do wear camo occasionally, but I'm not going to go out and buy, a certain type of camo because it's the newest and greatest out there. I like to wear stuff that's comfortable, that, is waterproof to my standard and, cuts wind. Because if you're out there freezing and you're cold and you're wet, the work doesn't start till you put the animal on the ground. Then the work really starts, and you need to be comfortable up until that point because you have a lot worse walk to the truck carrying 150 pounds of meat than you did walking out there with a 13-pound rifle.
Yep.
Oh,
exactly.
The best thing you can get yourself a pack. I use a Stone Glacier, and they do not pay me $1 to say this. I use a Stone Glacier Sky Trail pack. It is the lightest pack on the market, to my knowledge, with a meat shelf on it. Get yourself something where you can carry that meat close to your body and up high. You do not want it sagging back down on the lower back when you're walking out. get a pack that you can put all your stuff in that gets it close to your body and allows you to lean forward when you walk and isn't pulling you back. And all of us with bad backs can attest to the fact that you're going to spend more money on it, but it is definitely worth it, especially once you start putting weight in it.
Exactly. Makes perfect sense. Now, do you go hunting with somebody or do you go by yourself? Or does it depend?
If I'm elk hunting, I prefer to hunt with another person. And I also do this with my friends. If they drew a tag and I didn't, I will go with them. Because I love to hunt, but that's a lot of meat to bring out by yourself.
That's what I was wondering.
Anytime you're hunting bigger animals like elk, you're further into the woods, and any chance of having a mechanical injury, a broken ankle, you twist your knee up really bad. You may or may not have cell service. It's always safer to hunt with two people. However, when you start your stalk, don't try to stalk with your buddy. You're putting more scent in the air. Two people are louder than one. So just be smart about it. But I think anytime you're out in the woods or you're out of, emergency range, which I think is about 5 miles from a road, 3 miles from a road, you should be with somebody, because if something happens to you and you either don't have your phone because you're afraid that, you didn't turn all your alarms off, or your phone's going to make a noise, or, you just don't have cell reception, or you get out there 10 or 12 miles and you drop it in the creek. Garmin makes some really good stuff. You can utilize trackers that you can wear. My wife and I, she can track my watch. And that's satellite. That's not cell signal. But I like to hunt with people, because I like to be in the woods, but I also like to be able to help and pack their animal out, because I've packed elk out by myself and it sucks. It's usually 2 trips if you really want to break yourself, and sometimes 3, or you can take your time to bone it out and, maybe make it in 1.5.
Makes perfect sense.
Safety is key when it comes to hunting. Knowing what you're shooting at, knowing what's behind what you're shooting at. It's kind of like range safety rules, but be safe yourself. Carry a medical kit, basic pressure dressing, and a tourniquet. You might be the safest guy in the world. Jason, how many times have you drawn a pistol? You don't even know. But that one time you put a round through your freaking thigh is going to be the time you're 12 miles out in the woods.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, even for me on my range bag, I have the My Medic TFAC. So I have my tourniquet and chest seals and things like that, because and that's just at the range, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to go at the range. I should not have somebody shooting in my direction. Hunting, you should not have somebody shooting in your direction, but you're out in the woods with a lot of people shooting. There's no 360 rule or 180 rule in hunting. You have no idea what's over there, and if they think I'm a deer, or even then, if you get a ricochet, somebody could get injured. You want to be prepared with something for, and the thing is I hate like the med kits that people like, oh, I got a med kit I got at Walmart. Like, you have a 200 piece med kit and 190 of them are Band-Aids.
Yeah.
You're set. Yeah, you're ready to go.
2 years ago, I was hunting in Fort Rock, Oregon, and I had these elk. I've been watching them all day, and they were bedded up on this bluff, and I knew I couldn't get up to them without being seen, so I waited. Well, sure as heck, they came down, so I boogied it down to intercept them because I saw which direction they were going, and somebody on the other side of them sent a round. They were probably 600 yards out, and that round went past me 60 feet, maybe 70 feet. I mean, it was close enough. I didn't hear the snap, but I heard it going zzz as it bounced.
Yeah.
And they're far enough away, I can't yell at them. I didn't want to jump up and wave because I still wanted to shoot those elk. And I ended up getting a cow out of that herd. But just know, the animals you're out there shooting at, other people are out there hunting them too. Just because you see them doesn't mean somebody on the other side of them saw them. And if they shoot at the animal and miss and they hit you, they're not going to come up to say, they might not even hear you screaming. So be able to plug your own holes and be able to plug somebody else's if they get a hole in them.
And that's kind of the thing, is even if you are yelling, depending on their hearing protection or lack of hearing protection, whatever they're going on, if they're shooting, because I know people who shoot or hunt without hearing protection. They're like, I'll just take the hit for the one shot. Their hearing's blown out. So even if you're yelling, they have no idea you're there. You can be 20 feet away and they won't know.
Right, especially after they just fired 2 or 3 rounds of these running animals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So, Mike, do you have any final thoughts or advice for us? We got about, we're about a minute.
So I would say don't feel the need to go out and buy the newest and greatest. Hunting should be about, an experience with your kids, an experience with your friends, with your parents, the people you don't get to see all the time. Hunting season is kind of that thing that brings everybody together in our community. Spend what you can afford, because like I said, a lot of animals have been killed with a stick and a bow. So you don't need to go out and buy a $2,000 rifle and a $3,000 scope just to hunt. Now you can, but buy what you can afford. There's very affordable hunting rifles out there that'll work just as well as this $14,000 pile of crap on the back of my table here. But buy what you can afford, have a good time, but be safe, have a plan, and let other people know your plan. Tell your family and friends, I will be in this grid square. Leave your map at home. Leave your plan at home. Have somebody know. And if you don't hear from me by this time, start looking for me, because even if I get an animal, I'm going to make sure that I let you know I'm okay by this time. So have a plan and make sure other people know that plan.
Makes perfect sense. Mike, thank you so much for joining us on this today.
Yeah,
we really
awesome.
appreciate it.
I had a great time.
Really great information. I'm Rob Lupo from Lupo Outdoors. Come and check out my channel if you're not subscribed to my channel yet. We have a lot of things coming up, and especially take a look at my shorts on whitetail hunting. I don't have the experience that Mike does, but I'm a fanatic about studying and absorbing everything. So I research the living crap out of everything, and then I share that knowledge. We got Jason over there, or the Rogue Banshee.
I am Jason with the Rogue Banshee. A lot of my stuff is gunsmithing content that, at least I would say the most popular stuff is. Of course, it's all the stuff that YouTube doesn't like out there. But yeah, go check that out. Today, I dropped a video on the High Point JXP 10mm pistol. It's a High Point. It's 10mm and it's $200. You can take
awesome.
you can take it from there. If you want to get a 10mm cheap, and it's not a SIG, it's not a Smith & Wesson, it's a High Point. So go check that out. And then coming up on Sunday's podcast for me is I have Ari from Lone Wolf Farms on. He was just getting over bronchitis and suffered through a podcast with me. So we'll talk a little bit about Lone Wolf Farms.
Awesome. And Mike, any final words?
Yes. If you two could do me one favor, if I'm ever shot and killed by a High Point, can you tell somebody I got beat to death by a toddler so nobody finds out I got shot to death by a High Point?
Oh.
All right. Once again, we'd like to thank our guest, Mike, Long Range Reaper, for coming in and sharing his experiences with us. I'd like to thank Big Country for joining us, and everybody else who joined us. Even Vanessa Kitty was early this time, and that was fantastic. So yeah, usually she jumps in around the end, and she was before we started today. Thank you all very much. What are we going to talk about, Jason, next week?
We're going to talk about hearing protection, and I'm going to see if we can drag that out for an hour.
Actually, I got a lot to say about hearing protection.
I know you do.
Because I have a video coming up real soon on the different types of hearing protection for hunting and shooting, and when to use some and when not to use others. So that will be a good lead in, since I'm going to try to get that video out next week.
Awesome.
I use my hearing protection when I listen to your guys' podcasts, and I can turn off the audible section when Robert's talking, and then I can turn on the ability to hear when Jason's talking. So
Mike and I are like this. He's the one over here. He's like my
anyways,
friend,
man,
only different.
everybody,
man.
thanks
We
for
love you,
hanging
Mike.
out with us on a Friday. We really appreciate you hanging around with there and around with us. And Mike, man, thanks so much for jumping on with us.
Yeah. Have a good one, guys. Thank you.